Hello, everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about Miami. It's one of the most important cities in the world. It gets about close to 8 to 10 million visitors per year. And it's actually got the third most number of skyscrapers in the United States. So we basically wanted to look at Miami tonight, kind of take a careful look at what's going on. Miami, if you're not familiar, is down here in Florida, kind of on the American Peninsula down here, and you can see it's basically on the tip here. Some other nearby cities that you might be familiar with is Orlando with Disney World, and then West Palm Beach, all the way up to the Kennedy Space Center is over here, Cape Canaveral, Tampa, Fort Myers, and some other areas down here, Key West. And then nearby, you have the Bahamas. I've been told you can sail within one day between Miami and the Bahamas, so it makes it pretty close sail, and it's about 90 miles from Key West to Havana. So we're going to discuss just about everything about Miami, kind of get a very detailed view. I used to live down there. I kind of wanted to just get an overview for everybody to get understanding. So one of the things, as you first start to look at Miami, it's basically got a downtown area with pretty major skyscrapers here, and then quite a number of skyscrapers right along the beachfront here, kind of along Miami Beach. One of the things that's maybe not super obvious is that there's not really a beach in downtown Miami. You have to head out to Miami Beach and head out along one of these major roads here to get over to the beach. And actually, it's quite difficult getting access or even seeing the beach in some parts because as we zoom in here, you're going to see along the beach here, there's not a whole lot of parking available, public parking, and it's very slim in terms of just trying to get around. The road here is actually quite small here. You'll see Collins Avenue as well as Ocean Avenue right along the beachfront. But we're going to be talking about just about everything about Miami. You have Miami International Airport. Another important thing is you also have Fort Lauderdale Airport right over here. And that's an international airport as well, so a lot of people will fly into either Miami International or Fort Lauderdale. You may actually save some money by flying to Fort Lauderdale, and then they have a train that heads from Fort Lauderdale all the way to Miami. It's a kind of a high-speed express train that you can take, and that's an interesting option for people. So we're going to basically kind of dive in here and take a look at some more details. So this is the typical roads that you see. We're going to kind of look at some of the major roads in the area, and you're kind of going to get familiar with basically everything about Miami in this discussion. Here's kind of like what's going on with the population. You can see there's basically some heavy populated areas right downtown as well as right along Miami Beach area, and then it kind of spreads out into low-level housing, kind of suburban areas, street by street, kind of very square kind of neighborhoods in general you might see there, with the exception of some of the rivers kind of change what's going on. Here's some of the costs and areas. We're going to kind of dive into that. We're going to look at some of the demographics, kind of the white areas, black areas, Hispanic areas, and then look at the population demographics. The average person is around 30 to 35 years old. So kind of a little on the older side in Miami, but still pretty young. Another surprising thing is you might see that about 30% of the population is actually from Cuba, 5% from Nicaragua, Honduras, another 5%. Haiti has a lot as well. So actually only about 42% of the population is native born. So that means about 50 to 60% is foreign born. So there's quite a lot of people from other places in Miami, and you'll be quite surprised basically at that. And then we're going to kind of look at each of these neighborhoods. I spent some time in many of these neighborhoods, just about all of them actually. so I'm pretty familiar with the areas. And then kind of look at the overall road structure map, so you can kind of see where you are relative to some of these major roads coming in and out off the beach. So let me load this up really quick. So perhaps one of the more interesting things is that Miami is not like anywhere else in the United States. So basically you got this section down here, which is Miami, right? And it's basically in that hot red zone. And there's nowhere else. It's not like Los Angeles. It's not like anything else. It's basically like the rest of Latin America. And it's not even really like Mexico City. You'd have to get out to like Cancun to get a similar environment, but even that, it's actually a little bit wetter in Miami than it is in Cancun. So you'd have to get to this red zone areas, which is actually quite unique around the world. There's not a whole lot of these red zones. There's kind of two red zones. There's a dark red, which is kind of deep jungle, so it's not exactly like that deep jungle area, but it is pretty wet, and you'll see lots of clouds up in the sky from time to time. And we kind of wanted to just look at these major roads. If you are coming in from New York City, you can basically drive 95 all the way down the coast. And I've driven this several times. And it's quite interesting to see both 95 as well as the actual Ocean Drive Avenue. I get familiar with everything. So I can't emphasize this enough, but Miami is really positioned in one of the more important places in the United States for recreation and just a big city internationally. There's a lot of foreigners there, particularly as you saw from Cuba. And we're going to kind of just diagram this out to take a look at what's going on, so you can kind of get an idea. So you'll see that there's this kind of area right in here. That's basically downtown Miami. And then you have the Port of Miami, which is right over here. I'm not going to circle that. But actually, most of my time I was spent kind of on the north side. So you'll probably find that you two will spend most of your time either on the beach, which is Miami Beach right over here, or kind of along the north side here, along here. So there are some houses and some other residential areas on these little islands, but it's not too fun. There's not a whole lot of business activities. So basically, it's even downtown struggles with businesses because basically there's sky rises and there's not a whole lot of like everyday mom and pop shops. You're gonna have to head to the north side of Miami or out to Miami Beach. And even around here, you'll notice there's some different areas. You'll see kind of this midsection of Miami Beach right here. You see that's Miami Beach there, and there's basically South Beach and North Beach. They call it Mid Beach, and so on. And there is very few parking spots along this beach area just because it's so tight to look at. So we're going to kind of look at some of these areas together here today and kind of get a better picture for what's going on. So you do want to get familiar with a couple major roads. There's basically Collins Avenue, and Ocean Avenue, which basically runs right along the coast here. I didn't really circle it too well, but these two lines here, one is Ocean Avenue and the other is Collins Avenue. And then you definitely want to be familiar with these bridge or causeways areas. So there's a couple major bridges. These happen only in a couple places, so you want to be familiar with those areas there, and then this one here, and then there's kind of one final one. There's a couple, obviously, others up in this range here, and then this one definitely you want to be familiar with as well. That's kind of the south area. So there is a lot of, historically, probably the South Beach here was probably more of the more fun area where a lot of tourists came, but this is actually spreading farther and farther north all the way up to Palm Beach, which isn't even shown here, and then here's Fort Lauderdale. And then you definitely want to be familiar with the airports. Here's the two airports. This is Fort Lauderdale Airport and Miami Airport. And then there's this other road, in addition to the Collins Avenue, Bricknell Avenue runs all the way through here, and it runs all the way just out to Fort Lauderdale. So you want to be familiar with that road as well in Miami. And kind of once you get familiar with this road here, as well as these beach roads, you're going to start to see how the picture of Miami all comes together, and basically understand Miami a lot better. So next we want to kind of go into the population of Miami, and it is kind of interesting. I would say that this just kind of gives you a general perspective. So you basically have this whole chunk all the way out to Palm Beach, and you can see once you get to Palm Beach, this is Cape Canaveral and Orlando, so you basically have a couple of sections. This is definitely not Miami. But it's important to understand this is all along 95. There's a major road. So if you saw on this road here, you're basically seeing all the way from Jacksonville down is populated, but it's not exactly like you think. So basically, Jacksonville isn't even shown on here, but you have Tampa, right, Orlando, and then Miami. So there's actually quite a bit of population even in Tampa, right, and then Orlando, but you don't have the beaches in Orlando like you have down in Miami and along the coast here. So that's basically one of the main reasons. It's kind of swampier on this side. So the land, this is the Florida Everglades, which is, I'll put in blue here, and this is all kind of like swamp. So there's not really anybody living out there. It's pretty empty. But even within Miami, we're going to kind of dive in and see what's going on here. There's basically the Miami River here that does kind of have a lot of population right along it. So you'll see kind of these areas right here. This is downtown Miami. And then if you look really carefully at this map, you'll see that there's basically Miami Beach here. And then there's kind of two sections here. There's kind of a section right in here, and then a section right in here. And then there's actually, it's important to understand how kind of the west side of Miami works. Little Havana is a very important district, kind of off of 8th Street, heading out into downtown, from downtown. So you kind of have this district here and this district here. And the population is kind of older and different on the south side. So basically most of my time was spent on the north side, and you can definitely see as you head further north, there are some pockets that you want to look at. And actually the problem in Miami is that there is actually quite few businesses from my personal experience. Like I used to live in Brooklyn, and there's tons of businesses all over the place in Brooklyn. It's definitely not like Brooklyn or New York. There's actually quite few businesses and just a lot of condos and apartment buildings right along the beach. So you will find that kind of interesting. So there are some pretty good opportunities for some businesses and some work in Miami. So, and you can see, because it's not as densely populated up here, they basically have these grocery stores called Publix. Those are the main kind of business really down in Miami, is the grocery store. And then you have kind of these other neighborhoods like Little Havana that do start to show some of that more like Brooklyn feel, with lots of little shops all over the place. So you won't really find that all over the place in Miami. Something to think about. So we do want to take a look at this map carefully, and I'm going to kind of diagram this out. Each of these streets are numbered, and it's probably important to know all the numbering systems. Let me see if I can get that for you. Aha, here we go. So basically what you got to do is you got to kind of see how this all works. So basically they're numbered streets starting with A Street down here, which you basically get into Little Havana, kind of in this west side. So these are all the neighborhoods, but 36th Street, certain streets, 36th Street will become memorable. 79th Street will become pretty memorable. If you start driving around Miami, you'll see that this is kind of the main ways to get over to the beach, as well as this Venetian Causeway. And MacArthur Causeway as well. So definitely you'll have to know about these. And then this kind of other area, which people don't really go to too much. There's not too many things going on the south side of Miami. Like I said, it becomes more residential. But there are a couple places definitely to know about. And you can see Biscayne Boulevard, which is the main one. I call it Bricknell, sorry. But Biscayne Boulevard is the main one you want to know about. That kind of heads right along here. And this doesn't show Ocean Avenue or Collins Avenue, but you definitely want to know about that along the beachfront there. So let's diagram this out just so you can see. So pretty much the main road right here you want to get familiar with is that one. And then you get up to like 70th Street and so on. And then you get into the hundreds once you get up into here and so on. So this is kind of the 3 or 4 main areas. And then this is kind of the last entrance to the South Beach. So a lot of people will take this and then kind of drive up. There's only a one-way street on some of these, so you got to be careful because it's so slim, the driving and the parking right on Miami Beach, which is the reason that a lot of people have moved over to other areas. One of my favorite districts is kind of like right in here, so this whole area has kind of changed a lot with a lot of little cafes. And then you see Little Havana, kind of almost on the south side there, which is interesting. But it's important to also look at this street here. This is that one that we were talking about, kind of heads right into downtown. And that will be the main map that you should definitely use to guide you when getting around Miami. So let's look at this map. This shows kind of the population again, and you can see that it definitely drops off right through here. So there's kind of like a spot. Let me do that in red, and you can kind of see it's right between Fort Lauderdale and Miami area. And there's definitely some people both on the south side. So this is generally considered the south side after you get through here, this road, and then this is kind of considered the north side. And then there's basically called the south side of the beach right down here at mid and north side of Miami Beach. So this can kind of give you that. And then here's kind of showing you the greater part of Florida, including some of the farming. So you can see there's quite a lot of farming. Let's do that all in green. Basically, this is all farming right in here. So outside of Miami, quite a lot of farming. And then you even have this part here. So this becomes Palm Beach right here. This is Cape Canaveral. So we're actually looking at quite a big chunk of Florida here. And actually, you can see on the population side that this is actually a big bunch of people here. And you can actually see Palm Beach is actually definitely part of this whole section here. So give you kind of an idea. Here's the overall soil map for the region. You can see it's actually quite a lot of floodplain. This whole region is actually in purple, so that actually means that there's quite a lot potential flooding out in that region. And the dirt is basically not super solid anywhere around here. So, and this kind of gives the map with all the roads as well, heading all the way up to, I believe that's Jacksonville here. So it's kind of interesting to see. We probably should dive into the ocean map. A lot of people like to do boating and charters, but actually what happens is there's not a whole lot of boats out. When you go into Miami, you'll be surprised. Maybe on the weekends you'll see some boats, but it actually, the tide and the current is so strong because these little passageways here, the current basically gets really strong, so it's hard to actually navigate a boat in and out of Miami, unless you're a gigantic boat, and you will see kind of more of that major boating kind of being done. Let's do this in blue here. This is a lot of the bigger boats come in through here, and then a lot of the smaller boats you can kind of see come through here. But this actually goes down to Coral Gables, so this area here, it's actually kind of shallow as well, so you kind of got to be very careful, and that's why you see these red paths kind of only going certain areas, and the boats are not actually going everywhere along in these bays because it's actually quite shallow. And then here's kind of the geological map. I just wanted to emphasize how important basically the Bahamas is. You can see down here, basically the Bahamas being a lot of, like, if you think of just Miami right here, the Bahamas are huge, as well as Cuba is ginormous, and is super important to what's going on in the region. And then here's some more of this mapping to show kind of the floodplain. So you can see actually the floodplain is actually mostly in this region here, and then Miami has kind of basically picked up this purple region here. So it's not as bad as you think, but it does get pretty swampy as you get outside of Miami in that region right in there. So there's kind of another swampy region right up there as well. So kind of giving you some idea about that. And then here's kind of the electrical map for Miami. Most of that is actually done in the north side, and then there's a nuclear plant far on the south side, and you kind of get some ideas for the power in the region. And again, here you can kind of see some of these little building construction areas. So there's basically kind of a gap right in here, and you can see this area might be actually important to know about because there's kind of some industrial factories. A lot of these have been kind of converted to cafes and different kinds of businesses kind of on the west side. This is actually one of my favorite areas. And then you can actually see even on the farther north side, there's some districts here and here, and there's some other side streets that show bigger kind of buildings, as well as even in the far west side, kind of becoming more factories kind of around the airport, especially on the west side of the airport here. And then you can also see some other stuff going on in here, as well as kind of industrial districts down on the south side. But then the main part of downtown basically being split between these two sides. And this is the Miami River. You should definitely know about that. It kind of comes in right through and kind of splits Miami into two halves, and then it goes all the way through here. So you can see this is Miami River. Definitely important to know about as well. And this map shows you really a satellite view. You can see how big and important this whole Florida Everglades is. It just comes throughout here, and even kind of raising some questions about the south side of Miami. I would definitely question what's going on in this region for flood zone, and actually really all of Miami is kind of a huge floodplain. It's only a few feet above water, so it's important to look at that as well. Now you'll see a lot of lightning in Miami. It's actually kind of comes in a couple parts here. You can see this part up here, and then kind of, but not nearly as much as what you get out in Louisiana. So you actually get even more significant lightning out there. But it's interesting to see how these lightning patterns kind of come in from the ocean. And then one of my favorite maps is the Earth at Night. This definitely shows you all the way up to Orlando. And you can see basically quite a lot of regions. And you kind of have to separate this into, once you get to Jupiter area, there's kind of a separate, almost a divider line right there. As well as when you look out to the Florida Keys, there's actually quite a lot of population all the way along here. I was surprised. I drove out to Key West, and there's actually quite a lot of houses on these keys in this region as well, considering there's a road that actually connects this all up. but it does take a very long time to drive, so I don't recommend that for everybody. But definitely you can see the population actually coming out from Orlando, all the way in that back through Tampa and then Fort Myers, and then kind of changing right there at Daytona Beach, and you can kind of see even Jacksonville off in the horizon there. So lastly, we're going to kind of get into race and demographics, and you will see basically there is a lot of Latinos. Surprisingly, I was actually surprised that a lot of that is actually happening down here further on the south side. So this is Latino populations, and then the white populations are actually kind of on this green side, so you'll actually see that more on the south side, as well as kind of in this area here. Oops, wait a second. Yeah, so actually this is African American population is on green. So see African population right there, and then you'll see kind of the white population in blue, kind of really on the north side as you head out to Palm Beach and farther north in Florida. The wealth map is super interesting. There's actually quite a lot of poverty in Miami, and you'll definitely experience that as you head out west from the beach. So you kind of have most of the wealth being right along the Keys here, Miami Beach, as well also on the south side. And then heading out into Fort Lauderdale, basically the whole beachfront is very wealthy. And you basically have that all the way up to Palm Beach, and it actually becomes extremely wealthy. $100 million houses, $200 million houses, and even the president living out here in Palm Beach. So you kind of want to look at this map carefully to kind of get an idea. And then here's more of the demographic map. It's actually really hard to get this map. You'll actually see quite a huge African American population, right? So you see this whole area is pretty much African American. And then you see the white population kind of on the north side here, right downtown along the beach here. And then you kind of have some Hispanic population actually right along here, as well as really on the south side, heading out into Little Havana, and then near the airport, definitely a big Hispanic population, and as well as here. So actually, you'd have to argue that it's really a lot of African American, and I really found I think the numbers might be a little bit off for people like from Haiti and those regions, Jamaica, and some other places in the Caribbean that are African American. But it was really fun to see all the different types of people. This map really does kind of give you some idea. I'll clear this off so you can kind of look at that separately. And then here's a detailed map kind of the wealth in Miami, and you can see as you get kind of on the north side up to about this point, it actually is not super wealthy as you might think, and there's actually quite a lot of houses. You'll be really surprised to see if you drive around back in here. One of my friends does live kind of over here on the north side, near Fort Lauderdale, and then I used to live down in Miami a little bit. So basically it definitely is different than you think. When you're driving along the beachfront, it looks very wealthy, and then right along the downtown front area it looks really wealthy, but then as you get further out it can actually become quite dangerous, and there's certain neighborhoods you definitely want to watch out for. But a lot of this has been changing on the near west side. I would say this whole region right in here is actually quite fun and nice to take a look at. Once you get so far north, you have to be a little bit careful, but it's something to think about. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this study of Miami. We've basically gone through a whole bunch of different slides. As you can see, Miami is nothing like the rest of the United States in terms of weather. There's really nothing that compares to it. You'd have to compare it to the rest of the Caribbean. Definitely you should know about 95 and all the roads. We kind of looked at that. And then kind of familiarize yourself with the different areas in downtown. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. Let me know if you got any questions. If you're working on some interesting projects down in Miami, let me know.